Frank Funzi Thierry died in New York 2 days ago. Officials say Thierry was the head of organized crime and that he led the Vito Genovese crime family, which has 600 members. Thierry was buried in Brooklyn today, and John Miller was there.
The passing of Frank Thierry struck a contrast to the life he had lived. His funeral was at a small church in Bensonhurst. It was a modest funeral for a man said to be a crime czar worth millions. It was a civilized way to go for a man whose name was so often connected with violence and bloodshed. It brought back memories to a reporter who has kept an eye on organized crime. One thought back to Brooklyn, 1979. Carmine Galenti, said to be the boss of all bosses, wiped out over lunch at an Italian restaurant's garden. The plot to kill Galenti had been mapped out by two crime bosses who, according to mob informants, had sought Thierry's advice. Thierry, they say, had some difficulty dealing with Galenti and gave the go-ahead for his murder. That would eventually lead to Thierry being seen as the new head of New York's five families. One also thought back to Philadelphia, March 1980. Then crime boss Angelo Bruno was blown away in a friend's car. Bruno had reportedly agreed with Thierry to split the action in Atlantic City. Bruno's partners in crime thought the deal was a little too generous to the New Yorkers, according to our sources, and so Bruno had to go. This man, known as Chicken Man Testa, took over. A year, almost to the day that these pictures were taken at Bruno's funeral, Testa was blown off his porch by a powerful bomb. And so Frank Thierry lived to see the end of the man who most believe cut him out of the action in Atlantic City. As one stood on 85th Street on this spring morning, watching people weep over the fragile 77-year-old man who died here, one could look at some of the faces who did show. There were relatives and friends, some undercover cops, a lawyer, and some soldiers from the Genovese family sprinkled in the crowd, but none of the big men in the Genovese family and none of the bosses of other families. Only flowers spoke for many who were not there. Perhaps they didn't come to avoid the cameras, or perhaps they were just too busy keeping crime organized in New York. John Miller, Channel 5 News.